Fab, excellent. Welcome everyone, and welcome to the next installment of the TA Job Market Review with me, Robert Nunn. And today I'm being joined by Jeff Green, who happens to be, he was my first manager in the TA world. So it's all your fault, Jeff, to where I am now.
Guilty as charged. Cheers, Rob.
Welcome. Thanks for joining me on this call. Do you want to just give a brief introduction into who you are and your TA career?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, cheers, Rob. So I mean, I've been in talent acquisition for 20 plus years. I think we'll keep it as the plus. But started off classic, agency world. It was a terrible sort of agency recruiter. So a little bit too ethical, I think, at times. Moved into the RPO world where we first connected. So that was with Alexander Mann Solutions on a Capgemini account. And I do remember, and we might come back to it, the day of the interview as well. But yeah, had a few successful years with Alexander Mann Solutions, about 7 years with them, and then moved to the other side of the fence, actually managing an RPO with Microsoft. So a couple of years there on a contract, which was brilliant experience. European teams, managing some exec hiring for the first time as well, which was superb. And then the last 10 years I've spent with OpenText, which is a specialist in the information management side. And huge growth really through the organization, quite acquisitive as well as organic growth, but growing from about 3,500 employees when I started, about 1.3 billion, up to 25,000 and about sort of 4.4 billion when I left. And pretty much every role from recruiter when I first joined into European manager, into leading the team in India. Bit of a spell doing an interim global lead as well. So I pretty much had sort of covered off a lot of the roles there within the team. So, and then I left in June of this year, end of June this year. OpenText had taken over a company called Micro Focus, UK-based company based out in Newbury. But big acquisition, it leapt from about 14,500 people up to 25,000. And with the restructuring, it just felt after 10 years and, approaching a big birthday this year, it felt like a good time for me to get out and explore the market. So, I've done a bit of that really over the summer, and that's why we're sort of here today.
Yeah. Well, how would you describe the current job market for TA professionals?
It's absolutely crazy. I mean, look, we've been through so much in the last 4 or 5 years. We've been through the sort of the peaks and troughs, probably more than many other industries. And it has been really quiet. I think, coming onto the job market at the start of the summer has probably, is probably the worst time to actually come on board. I know some people, you're looking at some of my peers, they were very quick to getting messages out there. You can see the activity, from them immediately, and I probably took a slightly different approach. I sort of, I think, from my perspective, it was also trying to enjoy some downtime, get some time with family, care for parents, and other fun stuff like that, but coming back now after August, I've had so much sun that my freckles have sort of leapt out, and it's about time to get serious and get out there. But it's been slow. I mean, I think it's fair to say there's less opportunities than there were. And I think what the interesting thing is, the applications, against any advert are just unbelievable levels. You're talking 4 figures in many cases, and that's quite daunting and scary in some respects. But in many other ways, it's great to see it from the other side of the fence, to see that candidate experience and to think about the way that a recruiter would sort of narrow down the level of applicants so they can get to the people they want to speak to. So it's tailoring those job applications for each particular one, and obviously the other way, in the best way, remains networking and speaking to people within your network to get the leads. And but it's been really quiet. Interesting experience, because it's been 10 years since I've been out in the job market, and I've always been very lucky in the past, I think, with the way I've managed to secure opportunities. But I think I think it'll make me a better recruiter or a better recruitment leader when I do get back in there. So
absolutely. What importance do you put on networking and your personal brand with your job search?
A huge amount, really, to be honest. I think the networks are absolutely vital, and not being in work actually gives you that opportunity. Work doesn't give you any more excuses not to get in touch with people or reconnect with people, because we're all guilty. We've all got X thousands of contacts on LinkedIn, but how many are we actively sort of speaking to, checking in with? And I think one thing that's really taught me over the last, a couple of months has just been the reciprocal nature and the camaraderie and the community that you're now seeing within people, whether it's sharing jobs, whether it's, liking and making comments on people when they are seeking work, because, our industry has suffered probably more than most, as I was saying. And I think everybody can help each other just by, amplifying the message and increasing the activity. So that's important, but the network is critical, and it's not just the old network, it's actually making new connections as well. It's thinking through it's trying to, everybody's LinkedIn has become a spam folder in many ways, so it's trying to sort of not just rely on that, try and reach out directly, send the odd text message, make the odd phone call. That's a bizarre way of operating, isn't it? But reach out to people and think about, what can you give them? Is it value? Is it, clearly they may not have opportunities at the moment, but it's still trying to share some expertise. So any conversation, they're getting something out of it as well as yourself. I think that's another important step that you've got to try and do. But yeah, it's great. It's great to have that time to be able to do that. So that's an important step.
So, I mean, I don't know if you've done anything in particular, but is there anything that recruiters, people in TA can do in periods of downtime to upskill or to sort of keep skills fresh?
Yeah, I think it's really important. Your self-development is critical. I think the first thing is it's looking after your well-being. Because not being in work is a challenge. There are more concerns. You're managing your family's concerns as well, your partner's concerns, because there is this financial uncertainty. So well-being is critical, making sure that you are getting up at the appropriate times in the morning, and you're exercising, you're taking that time out for you, because why not? You're not always going to get it. You'll soon be back to the sort of 15, 16 whatever hour days, once you're back in a role, particularly a global role. So you've got to embrace that first and foremost. The second thing is trying to improve yourself, thinking about any gaps or any development areas. So I've done a couple of courses, online courses, leadership courses. I've spent a bit of time with a couple of life coaches to sort of just chat through where I am or where I want to go in the future. And then clearly the impact of it's a overused term, but AI in recruitment and where it's going to go. There's a lot of people trying to claim to be experts on it. There's a lot of people claiming that they've got the best tool, but trying to sort of understand that and think ahead about how are those sort of changes in that landscape really going to affect our business, and not just TA, but also the actual the HR aspects as well. I think that's another sort of critical area that I've been trying to keep on top of.
So you mentioned that this experience is going to make you a better recruiter. Can you share sort of some highlight or something positive that has happened as part of your process? Ultimately, you've been rejected or unsuccessful, but is there a particular recruiter or process that stood out that you want to share?
Yeah, there was one. I don't know. Do you want me to name companies? I'm very happy to do so. I don't have a problem.
No, yeah, if you feel uncomfortable to.
There was a recruiter, Bradley Hall at version 1. I applied to them. It was a role based around the Midlands area, which obviously was a tip to me, although I'm pretty sort of flexible where I work. And they'd had over 1,000 applicants. I think it was probably about 1,200. Initially I hadn't heard anything. Then I managed to sort of identify a connection to the recruiter, and we ended up speaking. Went through that first round of interviews, met with somebody in the business, and ultimately they decided that they didn't want to go forward with me. I also did a load of online tests, aptitude tests and other verbal reasoning tests, which was a real sort of eye opener. One of my children's going through his 11 plus at the moment, and that was entertaining, because I felt for him in terms of learning new skills or relearning some of those skills. But what I really loved about it was, I love the company, I like the profile, I like the the cultural aspect, but Bradley Hall, the recruiter, contacted me, and we went through probably about 35 minutes in terms of feedback, just in terms of his guidance and advice in terms of where to go. And that was just so reassuring. It was probably one of the first rejections I'd had. Obviously, you get a lot of automated ones, but that personal touch just reinforced what a positive candidate experience we all should strive to do. And not everybody's going to be able to find that time to do that, but that really stood out for me. I was really impressed, and I've put a few names across to him. And hopefully that'll be a relationship that goes forward. but that really stood out for me. I really like that, you know, fresh relationship, and just I felt valued as a human being, and not every organization is going to want to go forward with me, and vice versa. You know, I'm not going to select every organization, but to still come out with value out of a process and experience, I think is superb. So yeah, so Bradley, thank you.
Yeah. And given the roller coaster that we've been through over the last 18 months, where recruiters were in demand, I don't know if you were trying to hire recruiters 24 months ago, to where we are now. What's next for the TA industry? What's 2024 going to look like, do you think?
I think it'll be another tough year. I do think that on the enterprise side, I think there probably are still a few more rounds of you know, redundancies and rifts to go through. I mean, some absolutely will bounce back and start hiring. You know, I've been involved in the tech industry, which I think has been sort of impacted a little bit more. So I think that will be quite slow. I think we are beginning to see a little bit more movement in some of the smaller you know, mid-size, and certainly some of the VC, you know, private equity-backed organisations. But I don't think we're going to see it back to, you know, the boom periods a couple of years ago. But there are some industries which will continue to sort of hire, and I think as a TA professional, we probably haven't seen as much sort of, you know, people jumping between different industries. I think that may be something that we will see a bit more of. And then obviously the roles will shift again, you know, in terms of. I was just before this one, I was on the Matt Adler podcast. I couldn't listen to the whole thing, but just they were talking about that very question. And it was quite interesting to sort of hear some of their inputs about, you know, the shift in role and the shift in focus of a TA professional as well. So yeah, things will change. But yeah, I think it is about skills though, isn't it? You know, it's about different skills we have. So yeah, I mean, what's your take on it from, you know, your side? You're having a number of conversations at the moment, so.
Yeah, well, I think there's some wisdom in what you're saying there. That, you know, I think skills first is going to be key, and I think we're all too quick within TA to find those round pegs and round holes, whereas people jumping between industries are just as valuable because they do have the skills, and they've done the projects, and they've done the hard recruiting and the purple squirrel recruitment, and they can apply those skills in any industry.
And I think that's where the human being really comes in, and the old school recruiting techniques are going to be vital to find that sort of talent. And, you know, again, thinking about diversity and ED&I and finding those sorts of skills, you can't magic up candidates that just don't exist. And, you know, so you have to be creative. You have to look at people coming from different sort of paths. So I think that's where the individual and the human being is going to be still playing a very critical role.
100%. And final question, as is tradition, was asked by the previous person I interviewed. How can TA professionals become more commercial?
Yeah, I think this is something that really is important to me, because I always like my recruiters to have that business acumen. I think it's an intrigue, you know, that's so important. You have to want to get under the skin of your business, and that means spending time with the experts, which is your hiring managers and your leaders. Yeah, I was really fortunate at OpenText that I was able to sit with the customer solutions group, which is their consulting sort of division, which is 3,000 strong. It's now, I think, 7,000. It's multiplied quite a lot with Micro Focus. But I sat in on their leadership team, and that was invaluable to me, just to sort of improve my experience. And likewise, when I've hired recruiters in the past, you know, yourself included, I want people who've got that commercial sort of background. And, you know, or that commercial potential. So a couple of the people I hired into, you know, the OpenText team actually went across into sales and were very, very successful sales, you know, account executives, and you know, both went to club and had very successful careers in sales. One I was able to pull back into TA, which was a great win. So yeah, that was really, really important. So you know, I think it is just talking to your business leaders. Every intake is a great opportunity to learn about the business. You know, every interview is as well. You know, you learn about the business, you learn about the market by talking to candidates. Ask the questions, you know, and just be prepared to listen and learn. I think that's one of the most important things.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Jeff. Thank you for your insights.
No, it's great to catch up, Rob. Yeah, it's been a long time.